What's up, world, and welcome back to the Global Frequency. I'm your host, Nefarious.
And I'm Frequency Girl.
And tonight we are truly blessed to have Sean Chen from 247.
That's what you get for trying to tweet right before the show.
I'm interrupting myself.
Yes, you are.
That's a whole new level of like meta inception, screwing up the show.
Yeah,
right.
At least it wasn't me this time.
Welcome to the train wreck, everybody. I am your host, Nefarious, and tonight we are glad to have Sean Chen from 247 Comics here to talk about his creator-owned comic book crowdfunding campaign, Evermind, now live on Kickstarter. Sean Chen, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me.
We're very glad to have you with us. So before we get into the book and start talking more about like the comic book itself, we like to get to know our guests a little bit better. So first off, where are you from? Where did you grow up?
From the Washington, D.C. area, and
I think we need to tweak your mic just a little bit. All of a sudden, you're
right before we
little
went
crackly.
live. Yeah, I think the only way I can do that is to leave and come back.
Okay, guess what? I'm booting you. Bye.
Come right back. It's so funny because like right before we went live,
Crystal
we were
clear,
chatting,
yeah.
Crystal clear.
We turn on the go
nice
live
and loud,
button. I'm
everything's
interrupting
great.
myself.
Yeah,
His
I
audio's
blame
going.
Neff. It's all Neff.
Yeah, technology hates me. It's because I write about
While
it.
we're waiting, we'll say hello to the chat.
We got
Hello,
Mo Biggs
Mo
with us. Sean's walkie-talkie is on low batteries, indeed.
We have Ichthys.
Whoa, something is interrupting the
Yeah,
frequency. Yes, that would be
Neff.
that'd be me.
He was trying to tweet it out
doing myself.
and
Yeah,
share,
yeah, good.
and then
We have got Will with us. He is first indeed today, I believe. So he wins the credit for D-Wag's
we have a couple
sticker.
other people hanging out. And hello
yeah.
on whoever's watching on Twitch and Facebook.
Do we need to make sure we send Sean the link again?
I can do that again. It should still work, but
He might not have. Yeah. We're gonna try and get the guest back, guys. Because
vamp a little.
it's not every day that we have to make up for the technical difficulties this bad on our end. D-Wag has a sticker. Well, okay, so he's got one of those little membership cards, like a frequency
he doesn't
card,
actually
right? Like
have
we're doing
it.
those now. Absolutely.
We are.
We're totally doing
that
those
means
now.
I'm figuring out how to do it.
Yeah, we're gonna do the visual design. Everyone's gonna have like a digital frequency card if you once you subscribe to the channel, and every time you're first, we'll give you a little sticker, and when you get like 10 stickers, we'll give you a free coffee or something. I'm not quite sure, but you guys gotta get us to 1,000 subs so that we can make the whole subscription thing work, because if we can't get there, then we can't give you your little stickers, and it's unfortunate. I am keeping track though. And D-Wag's got a couple first. Will, Mo, you've been in there quite a bit, of course. Our loyal viewers that stick with us through thick and thin when we have guests and we don't. And speaking of guests, we just got him back. We got Sean Chen with us, everybody.
Okay, is this any better?
Yeah,
Yes,
perfect. All right, so
Awesome.
the question was, where are you from and where did you grow up?
Okay, I'm from the Washington, D.C. area, and I went to school in Pittsburgh at Carnegie Mellon University, and I moved to New York to work for Valiant Comics, and pretty much stayed here until I worked for Marvel, and I'm still here now.
Yeah, your first issue was Rye, right? You did Rye at Valiant. It was
Right.
It was like Rye number 9 or something, and it was
Yeah,
huge.
Ryan the Future Force number 9. Yeah.
So, all right, I don't know if you know, a lot of people in the chat know that not only did I love Shatterstar growing up, but I was a huge Valiant fanboy. I loved Image, clearly. Like, Image was great. I loved Spawn. I loved Wildcats. I loved Cyberforce. I loved, like, the sugar rush, high octane monster energy and Cheetos of the comic world that was early Image Comics. But I also loved Valiant. Valiant had Hard Corps. Valiant had Harbinger. It had Exo Manowar. They picked up Nexus. They had one of my favorites, Bloodshot. I loved Bloodshot, guys. I know it's silly, but you know, I was a teenager. What can I say? So meeting you, because you worked on a lot of those titles, right? You worked on Harbinger, Bloodshot, Exo Manowar, and Ryan the Future Force. Did you work on Magnus Robot Fighter? Because that was my other boy. I mean, I love robots, but I love watching them get, you know, beat up too. Good stuff.
So yeah, my first book was Rye and the Future Force. So the Future Force includes some other characters, and Magnus is one of those characters. It was a team book. So
nice,
I drew
yeah.
Magnus in it, yes.
Yep, and you had Spylock, who was like a insect dude. Yeah, I remember the Future Force pretty well. Magnus had that like impenetrable tunic, which I thought was really dope, and I always wondered what kind of shorts he wore under there, because it was a really short-looking tunic. Mo says, Neff was smoking that ninja crack. That's a crack about Ninjak, if y'all didn't catch that. We've got Edwin, Bloodborne Second Chance Campaign on FMC Acevedo. I have to say it every time. It's just Edwin Aces, guys. Welcome back, Edwin Aces. Glad to have you on the channel with us. So,
says Valiant V1 was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't dislike the Rebirth either, and
you know, you got a bunch of them.
Yeah, I have a lot of the graphic novels.
Yeah.
And you know, I enjoyed like Eternal Warrior and Archer and Armstrong from earlier in the days. So like I had like almost every Valiant title, guys. And then when it got relaunched, I picked up a lot of the trades. Yeah, so you mentioned you went to Carnegie Mellon. What did you study at Carnegie Mellon?
I majored in industrial design. So that's kind of like car styling for consumer products. So yeah, I didn't really do much in that field, but it did prepare me a lot for drawing mechanical things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and I gotta say, Carnegie Mellon has a reputation for being very technical, science forward. So when I read the preview issues of Evermind that you sent us, I was looking at him being like, okay, so he's dabbling with genetics here. He's on the cutting edge of like bleeding immersive AI tech. He's talking about like transferred consciousness, virtual reality. How much of this did he pick up at Carnegie Mellon? This man's making use of his early education before he became a famous comic book artist. Speaking of famous comic book artists, what about meeting Barry Windsor Smith? Can you tell us how you got your start in comic books?
Okay. I wanted to draw comics, and then so I started putting a portfolio together. So at the where I was in Washington D.C., there was a convention that came around, and I met David Mazzucchelli there, and I showed my portfolio to him, and he thought, I think if you're an artist that shows promise, they tend to like help you along and befriend you. So he kind of helped me along for like maybe a couple of years, only like meeting him at conventions when he comes back and everything. And then I was hanging out with him in San Diego Comic-Con, and the publisher for Valiant came over to hire David Mazzucchelli. And David says, like, I don't really do that anymore, but this kid does. And then so that publisher, who was Steve Masarsky, brought me over to the Valiant booth, and my portfolio was going to be looked at by Barry Windsor Smith, who I absolutely idolized because his Weapon X was very seminal to my development. And just to have him look through my portfolio was an honor. So that's how I met him. And then when I got into Valiant, that's where I met Bob Layton, who actually really did a lot for. I was classically trained as an artist, but Bob Layton and Barry Windsor Smith and David Mazzucchelli helped me transfer that classical art training over into comics, because it's a very different animal. So I had three mentors that really helped shape me, and looking back at it, I don't really know how I fell into such great company there, but I'm very thankful for knowing all three of them.
Yeah, it's great. I don't. It's fortunate, right? I don't know if luck has anything to do with it. You put in a lot of work and honed your skills and everything, and then you were in the right place at the right time, fortunate enough to meet the right people. Will says Barry Windsor Smith is legendary, his legendary status. Mo Big says, everyone please hit like and subscribe. It's the only way we're going to get those membership cards to put our stickers on. That is true, Mo. It's the same as like everybody needs to support ARO, because it's the only way that you're going to write it. So when you were growing up, what kind of comic books did you like to read? Did you have like a favorite character?
My coming up in comics was very different than those people. My parents didn't really allow comics in the house, so I was really unfamiliar with comics. But I got
So you had to read them. You read them on the porch then, or in the backyard. Is what
actually,
you're
I
saying,
never
right?
really even saw a comic for up until like I was in high school. I just never really came across them. So I love the superheroes from the TV show, and then actually the comic was in like the Washington Post, which is like a serious newspaper, would have daily strips that has Spider-Man in it, and on the weekends they would have the Sunday one, which is the longer one. It's in color. It's more Spider-Man, often drawn by John Romita. So I fell in love with that, and then my first real the thing that made me have to go into comics was coming across Heavy Metal magazine, and that's kind of strange because to get a comic book you'd have to go to a comic book specialty store, which I didn't go to. But to get a Heavy Metal magazine, you just have to go to the mall.
Newsstand,
the newsstand, it's there. So I looked through that, and that blew my mind because the European sensibilities of like Mobius and Milo Manera, they drew people that looked naturalistic and like people. And when they were coloring them, they wouldn't use that 4-color separation process. They would just paint watercolor on it. So it was very artistic, and the people looked like people. And that's what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, that's not how comics are done in the States because the superhero aspect is just more exaggerated, more bombastic. So if I wanted to get a job in comics, I was drawing like Batman as if I were like Milo Manera. It just didn't work too well. So that's
you were drawing Batman like Milo Manera.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something to be said. I want to see that Batman. That was a
really
luscious Batman. You know what I mean? Like Manera is renowned for just the not just the eroticism, but the wonderful flesh tones that he uses and the wonderful line work that he's got. It's very fluid, and all of his characters are supple. I loved Heavy Metal magazine growing up. I had a
supple Batman.
He's supple, very, very supple. Curves in all the right places, bulges where they need to be bulging, right? So, what about now? What kind of comics do you like to read now? Are you reading anything that's on the stands?
Yeah, I read some comics, but I look at a lot of them. I look at almost all of them.
Yep.
And on Instagram, you can kind of follow every single artist who's drawing comic stuff and just scroll through and see what everyone drew that day, which is fantastic. My favorite artists are like Pepe Larraz, who I guess he's at Millar World now, and then Olivier Coipel is another favorite, and for the longest time Travis Charest was a big favorite of mine. So those are probably my big three.
So we also got, just real quick, tuning in, we've got Snuggy Jr., and we've also got Silver Ogre. Thanks, guys, for joining us, talking to Sean Chen about Evermind. So when did you start drawing, really? I know you got your start in, like, technical drawing, but comic books and technical drawing, they are different. Perspective-wise, action panels, like you said, being bombastic, all of that is an acquired skill. It's not just talent. So how did you hone that craft, and when did you start?
Well, I would watch a lot of Saturday morning cartoons. So there's the Super Friends, and then there are things like Battle of the Planets, which I think was called G-Force, Star Blazers. That stuff really inspired me. And like Speed Racer. So I would try to draw those things, and I was always drawing. And then I think at some point, I was kind of discouraged to draw because I think it kind of leads to a life of poverty. So my parents kind of downplayed it. But then when they found out that you can get into college with a degree in art, they really went hard in on the academic art. And I really excelled at that, the landscape painting and the still life type stuff. Really kind of boring. And then as soon as I could get out of that and into comics, I jumped immediately into the fun part of art, which is illustration and comic illustration.
The fun stuff. What is up, Rick Sailor? Bow! Thank you so much for tuning in. So after Valiant, you did a lot of work at Marvel on titles like Iron Man, Wolverine, and Elektra. Who was your favorite to draw at Marvel of the Marvel characters?
Ironically, I had a 3-year run on Iron Man, and that's probably the character that's most associated with me. But it's probably the one I drew like I like the least to draw.
Really? He's like all technical and stuff. I would
Yeah.
imagine with the machines and the mechanical
Someone else that we
engineering and
talked to
everything.
had the same thing where they're like, whoever it was that they drew the most and were most well known for, they were like, no, I hate it.
Yeah,
I
hate
can't
it, hate
remember
it.
who
All right,
was
so
now.
who was
Yeah.
your
That's
favorite?
funny.
I think that I can draw that stuff well because I understand. It's easier to draw man-made stuff than a real human being because human beings are organic and very difficult in expressions, and weird things like hair and flesh and how it moves is very hard. But then mechanical things can be understandable. If you know how to do math, you can do perspective and all that. So I can do it. I can do that pretty well, but it's not that fun. It's just like doing like math problem sets for comics. The real fun is drawing like the
Doesn't
rippling
sound
muscles and stuff, and like sexy ladies and stuff. That stuff I didn't get to
So
draw
Elektra.
that much.
It was Elektra then. You liked Elektra.
Well, I started out on Iron Man because I couldn't draw people that well, and then as I got better at drawing people, the characters I drew got more and more naked. So
So yeah, Elektra.
yeah, and then Elektra is basically wrapped in red
Muscular with hair.
Yeah.
We were talking about
Yeah.
hair, expression, muscles, and naked. That's got to be Elektra. But your most recent thing, I think you were on Nova, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was one of my last things I did at Marvel. And yeah, I think that went over surprisingly well. I think it was a good fit for me. That alien universe was kind of a bit tough because it took a lot of like imagination, but it wasn't my imagination, it was the writer's imagination. So I had to kind of, try to figure out what he's thinking.
Right. And now you are on to Evermind and 24/7 or 247, I'm not sure which, comics. Now, how did that come about? You worked in mainstream comics in the industry for quite a while. You have significant reputation, a lot of art cred under your belt. Why strike out on your own and self-publish your own comic? That seems like a very expensive and overwhelming endeavor.
Right. It is overwhelming. It's not expensive for me because 24/7 Comics takes on that risk. But I think every artist work in comics is when you reach Marvel or DC, that's considered like the pinnacle, and like you've made it, and you kind of like want to ride that out forever. But I think you come to realize that there's one more step above that, and that's drawing stuff that you create on your own. So that to create your own IP and your own character, and write your own story. That's a very difficult leap because there's no telling whether you can do that at all because it's a different skill set. There are writers who specialize in writing, and then you're an artist who specializes in art. Now you're creating stuff and writing. So hopefully that works out. But I think a lot of people agree that that's the place to be and to try to aspire to be in. So I gave that a try, and this is like the big experiment. The Kickstarter is on and live now. We'll see if it was a good plan or whether I have to go back to Marvel and ask if they would have me back.
I think you're doing pretty well. You're at 30K. You got 5 days left. So it's a pretty successful campaign given the current climate. We will be talking about that towards the end of the show. How did you get involved with 247 Comics and why 247?
Well, they approached me because I knew the person at the top of it who was Carl Choi, is basically the publisher. And he put this company together expressly to create comics that are more like creator centric. Because I think there's a lot of comic book creators that feel like they're kind of used and abused by the big companies. So this is one that really takes care of the creators. So we built this company, and then I was kind of their first guinea pig. So we created this project expressly for 24/7 Comics, and so we'll see how that goes.
And how's 24/7 handling distribution? Are they sending it to stores? If this is like the first big project that you guys are doing, sort of like the proof of concept here, the flagship title, so to speak, are you guys, or I don't know, do you know if Mr. Choi intends to go through Diamond or one of the other distribution networks to get it into stores, or if he's going to go to Amazon with it, or like what's the plan for the book?
Well, initially it's a Kickstarter. The thing is, like, I was, just a year ago a comic book artist, and now I'm an artist writer, and then now I've realized I have to learn to do the promotion thing. So artist, writer,
Yep.
promoter, and then
Creator,
the one
yep.
thing I don't really know about is the business side. So if Carl Choi was here, you can ask him that question. We talk about it, but I'm very new to this part of the business,
Right.
and also he is also. So we're actually putting out feelers and talking to a lot of people. I don't think it ever hurts to create the best product possible first, and then the distribution, the dialogue about that just kind of happens concurrently. And we'll figure something out.
Right. I mean, that's a good point. And honestly, learning as you go is probably the best way to go about this. It's sometimes it's not the most efficient way. Sometimes like
Yeah.
studying it and picking people's brains, but like the school of hard knocks, the down and dirty
Teaches you
nitty
fast.
gritty, like it'll teach you fast. And if you can survive it, it teaches you well. All right. So when did you start working on Evermind, and how did Daniel Wu get involved?
Okay, it's been about over a year now in development. And so I was actually developing this first with Carl Choi, because he's the one that came to me and said, we want to make a comic, and how about making it based on this one picture here? And then, there was an image that I drew a long time ago, and he said, let's see if we can spin a story out of this. So we kind of workshopped the idea for a while. And then when we got it going, it was time to start drawing it. And I asked him, like, well, who do you see the main character looking like? Because I never really thought about it. And then he said, draw Daniel Wu. So, it's fine. I don't really care what he looks like. So I drew Daniel Wu over and over again. And it was maybe like into the second issue, Carl Choi, the publisher, just said, I think I want to show this to Daniel. Like, I know his people, and then maybe he'd want to come on board. And, I thought it was like a real long shot. Because you would just go ask some actor, like, I've been using your likeness, and would you like to come on board with this? We showed it to him.
Buddy,
And
we had a very similar conversation not that long ago, and I told him we couldn't do it that way, and that's why I'm getting that.
And I said, you know what they did? It sounds like Sean Chen started drawing Daniel Wu and drew him for a while, and had a character concept kind of based around him. And when you use an actor's likeness in this regard, where you kind of created the role for them, it is so much better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And I was like, they went to him after the fact. They said, yo, Daniel, we got this thing. You want to come on? I think we created him specifically for you. So I'm serious. Go call Charlie Hunnam's people. Okay.
I'll work on that.
Okay. I'm sorry. Get back to it.
There's a whole bunch of trouble going on with writers and actors now with the strike and work in the studios. Just to have something creative going on the side, I think it's a great time to ask. They're not doing anything. So
That's a good
by
point.
research, just mean like who is Charlie Hunnam's agent in Google?
Yes.
And send him an email. Okay. I have a mecha book, and I have a couple characters that are designed after other actors, and one of the ones coming up kind of looks a whole lot like Charlie Hunnam, and he may have had something to do with the fact that he was in Pacific Rim, and we never got the sequel that we wanted to Pacific Rim. And
Our book doesn't have any kaiju.
no, we don't have kaiju. No. It's just mecha on hot robot action. Very very sexy.
So you drew Daniel Wu and showed it to him, and he was like,
And then what? And he was like, yeah, cool, man. I'll come on board. I want 50%.
Oh yeah, he loved the story, and the way he contributes is that when you write science fiction, there's a tendency to have it mostly about action and plot, like robot battles and everything, and then it's harder to fit character in there. So when you bring an actor on board, and actors are really intrinsically, they have an understanding of character and motivation. So he was constantly, for their job, they constantly have to look at like what's going to provide the most nuanced performance. Like, what do I need to know? Like, what's this person's backstory? Like that cliche question, what's my motivation? So, so I mean, he brought all that to the story. So now you got like all the action, and then the story has a great character through line that he brought to it, and it just makes it so much better.
But there's also a lot of science in Evermind from what I've seen. Who does the research in the technical aspect? Because I started getting through issue 2 when you start talking about MAOA, and we're already talking about singularity theory and transhumanism in the first issue. And I'm like, all right, these guys been reading. They've been looking. They know some stuff. Where did all of that come from?
It came from me, but I think I think a lot of it's junk science. But so you make stuff up and then you do quick Wikipedia searches. Like honestly, I didn't do too much.
So you reverse engineered. Gotcha.
Yeah.
No. He's not sick of giant robots. Not at all. Just talk to the man. You'll see. All right. So
robots are cooler.
Our robots are cool. I mean, they don't have cool names like the unique
Gypsy
mechs, like
Danger.
Gypsy Danger and like
That's fair.
Striker Eureka. Like those are neat names.
Didn't just
We do have the Wendigo though.
yes, I was gonna say,
And we do have Charon.
a different kind of cool name.
All right, this is not a show
No, it's
about
not.
us.
Yeah,
This
sorry.
This is a show about Sean Chen, our guest. So, tell us about the main characters in Evermind. Who's the protagonist? And there are multiple sort of main characters. Do you feel one is like the primary character, the main protagonist, or are there multiple storylines kind of woven together? And if so, who are the principal characters?
Well, it's primarily the scientist. The Daniel Wu character, I think, is the protagonist, and then a close second is his daughter. So it really is a father and daughter story. So this scientist, Dr. Lucas Zhang, he's a brilliant scientist, and he's really hell bent on achieving greatness at any cost. So it kind of forces him to kind of make this big technological breakthrough. And sort of like opening a Pandora's box that kind of unleashes onto the world. So that technology is, it's about like controlling robots with your mind and stuff like that. So, so he's very compromised in that way, and because he's so hell bent on greatness, he's cutting a lot of corners, making a lot of mistakes, and forming lots of partnership with bad people. And at some point, it gets to a point where it's so bad that he realizes he has to bring down all the stuff he's put into play by going through some extreme measures. So he's a scientist who's kind of on the very compromised side and causing a lot of harm with his technology. His daughter happens to be in a group of activists, yes, yeah. whose main cause is the responsible use of science by corporations to make sure they don't abuse it against the people. So they end up on opposite sides of the spectrum. So the story is about, will they ever come together in any way? Because their relationship is so fractured, just being on the opposite ends ideologically. So, she sort of ends up being sort of like the mentor that points him in the right direction of the better man he should be. And so it's just about them coming together again and undoing all this damage that he put into play.
Yeah, that for those first couple pages with the world's greatest dad mug were like a knife in the heart. I was like, oh, I don't know if I'd be able to survive if my daughter did that. I think I would just like quit my job right there on the spot and be like, I'm sorry. But I understand that he's conflicted, right? He's trying to leave a great gift to the world. He has a vision, a scientific vision of something that he wants to create to kind of push the advancement of the human race. And he's also a bit of a genius, and there is ego wrapped up in that. Yeah. And he's working with the theme park owner.
Bobo World.
Sorry,
that's a
right. There's Bobo World and I want to call it Undercroft. That's
Underworld. Yeah.
Underworld. Yeah. Bobo World and Underworld, and using his technology to like bring their weird Five Nights at Freddy's animatronics in It's a Small World to life. Now, how did you come up with that? Were you at like say Disney or someplace and you saw one of the weird robotic puppets and you were like, what if that was controlled by somebody's mind? Like, where did the idea for Evermind come from?
Well, I think this story is full of like big, creative and imaginative ideas. The kind of when you see it, like you'll think like, oh, that's really cool. Why hasn't that been done before? And what I like about it, since I'm a visual person, like if this scientist comes up with an idea of how you can control robots, remotely. Uh, he wants to kind of license it out to the biggest money people because he needs the money.
Disney and BlackRock.
Right. So that's the idea. It's like the entertainment and military. The fact that they're completely separate in their use case, but the fact that they would use the same technology, I thought that was intriguing. And then just in the Disney, if they wanted to maximize their profits, Disney is primarily for children, particularly girls, because of all the princesses. And that's only one part of the family. So in order to maximize money, they opened up an adult playground underneath Disney for
with slutty robot chicks.
Yeah, and the slutty robot chicks are the same robots that play the princesses above ground.
Same technology, yeah.
And then so
I liked that idea. Yeah, the working girls went from being like, the princess robots during the day to being the stripper robots at night. And I thought the incident that you showed with the first accident in the theme park was a very clever way of showing some of the dangers of this and like cognitive displacement inside of these neural pathways that connect to the robots. I thought that was very neat too. I mean, there are a lot of good ideas going on in the book. So who then, I think there's another character that you should probably talk about besides the main scientist, Lucas. What about the soldier, what's his name? Campos. Yeah. Tell me about Campos. What's his deal?
Well, they're on a joint mission between half mechs and half humans, and he's supposed to be installed as a puppet leader. So he has to. So there is like live human assets, and then there's robots involved, and they get betrayed in a way that
they get ambushed.
Yeah. They don't like the idea of serving next to these robots because they're not piloted by true soldiers. They're actually piloted by kids who are basically scraped from the pay-to-play gaming community, because Boba World has a gaming division and they're really good at the first-person shooter game, so they make them the soldiers. And in order to teach them to kill, they use a lot of like mind manipulation and stuff, that kind of psychological warfare on these kids to get them to kill on command. And they act really cocky and everything, and these hardened true soldiers don't like serving next to them because they just don't know what it is to be a true soldier. So they're just playing games, and they kill from far away, and they don't really feel the impact of taking someone's life.
Yeah, I think the thing was there was no risk. When I read it, I was like, he nailed it there. To be a soldier is to risk something. It's to put something on the line to achieve an end, either to protect, people, to eliminate a bad guy, whatever it is that you're doing, the objective you're trying to achieve is for a greater purpose. And in doing that, you are risking who you are. And without that risk, you can't really call yourself a soldier in that regard. And the reason that Campos doesn't like these first-person shooter video game kids is because they're not really risking anything. They're back at home. They're not here in the mission. They're half asleep, and they're piloting 50-ton mechs that are like armed to the teeth with rockets and missiles and all the things I love. But they're not really, putting themselves in danger and jeopardy. There's no men on the battlefield. And honestly, I think that's a very significant part of like future war, is talking about the presence of human beings on the battlefield. And it's one of the reasons that I don't like the idea of remote controlled robots, specifically because the scenario that you put in the first issue is incredibly likely. And you need to have those soldiers there physically, even if they are using like incredibly advanced robotic technology. You need to have them there to still maintain the human element. So I really like Campos, and I think he's a very good juxtaposition, a foil, so to speak, for Lucas, because Lucas is very much focused on the technology, and Campos is very much focused on the humanity. Lucas is very much focused on like the elevated way in which they want to use this technology, and Campos is very much focused on the human way that we see conflict. It's almost like Lucas doesn't see the conflict, but Campos does. You know what I mean?
I'm going to interject for just one moment.
Because we got Dojo.
Hi, Dojo. He says, great guest. I love Sean's work. And he also had a question. He said, if their mechs die, is there some kind of feedback or something?
Oh, they do that a lot in stories like this. Like if you die as a robot, you die in real life. In this case, no. I mean, I think if your mechs die or you run out of batteries, you just wake up. But the whole reason they're doing these programs is to raise money. Like the reason they're in bed with the military and the entertainment corporation is they need to make money. And the reason for the money is that uh, Dr. Zhang has this idea that if you were to put your mind into a robot and let's say your human body were to die of either illness or old age, you would be still alive as a robot and can live potentially forever. So basically what he's trying to achieve is immortality. And that's the big expensive thing that he's trying to do. So in that sense, he's doing that because he can and he wants to become great and successful, but really not asking whether this technology of immortality should even exist. So
right,
there's
that's
a lot of
question.
Heavy philosophical issues in the story. And that's one of the themes in the story is the proper place for technology in society, and we see that these days with
right.
AI and drones and everything. So it's very much an allegory to what goes on today.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if there are like subtextual themes that you're trying to explore, if it's mostly just, like robots and tech that's very surface level. But it seems like you do have an intent to explore like the deeper ramifications of what artificial intelligence and scientific advancement, technological innovation will all bring to our society. We got Dean with us. What is up, comics mate? Glad to have you. Like I said, hi to Dojo.
Mo Biggs also said not risking anything. Have they never heard of blisters?
Well, these would be bed sores, Mo Biggs,
Yeah,
because they're unconscious or in a semi-conscious state when they're piloting the mechs. But I agree. Training on those controllers can be brutal. Eye strain,
You should know he's been, doing lots of research for Mavericks by playing Armored Corset.
I am 3 missions away from S ranking
The entire game.
all 74 missions. I'm just to the 3 last missions from my ultimate trophy. That'll be a 100% completion on all of the game's achievements. It's the one thing that I'm working on now. Man, do I hate those 3 missions. Yeah, so let me just check real quick. Yeah, we're good. Silver says that's pretty dangerous too. Yeah, it is. So the antagonists, who are they? Other than the partner and Bobo world, because it seems like there's some tension going on there. Some betrayal may happen. Who are the primary antagonists? In the first issue, there's a group that kind of catches the commandos by surprise. Who are they, and who poses a threat to the different characters in your universe of Evermind?
So those guys, you'll have to. That's in the second half of the story. I can only talk about what's happening in this Kickstarter, so that stuff is spoilery stuff. But that character Armand, who's sort of like the evil Disney guy. Mm-hmm. His grandfather or father is the one that started Bobo World, but is just running it into the ground, and he is desperate to get back on top again with with this whole idea of being able to gatekeep immortality to all the right people who either can pay as much or have the same ideology. So,
right,
in a sense, like, and it's not so much discussed, but I mean, his grand scheme is there's a great pandemic coming, and half the world's population will be gone. But he can rescue you with this immortality. You can switch your body to a robot, and then if you have enough money or if you share his same ideology, he's basically curating the population of the world going forward. And that is just an evil plan, as evil as Thanos and as evil as a real historical figure who I can't name. But yeah, so he is manipulative and very, very evil, and so he is the main antagonist. So you get to see in the issues 4 and 6 how they do battle together and in what form that battle takes place.
We've got Ollie joining us now, as well as Odin. What is up, guys? Thank you so much for tuning in. Dojo is launching on Bancrofts tonight, guys. If you didn't know, Dojo's got his launch for his crowdfunding campaign on Bancrofts. That's at 8 p.m. So after this show, migrate on over there. We would give you the link.
Send you there, but
we don't have 1,000 subs yet, guys. Get on it. Okay, so I was just going to say, we have a character in our universe named Armand. Armand Alexander, who is the sort of slick salesperson-y head of a mega corporation that has a scientist named Curtis Wheeler who is working for him on neural technology. And I was just like, and there is a calamity that comes and wipes out roughly half of the world's population, and they're using this tech to try and protect the people that are remaining within these cities that they set up, which use the tech as sort of the backbone for that new world order style metropolis that they build. And I was looking at this, I'm like, wow, Sean, have you and I been hitting the same pipe? Like, what is going on here? Like, these are some really serious, like, cross communication. And
Except we don't have any animatronics.
No animatronics yet. No, I haven't built out Neotoma multimedia enough yet to do the animatronics. But like I said, there's still a lot of overlap in the way people are thinking about AI and futurism and what we're seeing in the world and anticipating the potential ramifications of like a global pandemic or global disaster.
So if you guys liked Mavericks, you should probably
definitely you should check this out.
Go click on that link.
Also, if you like Sean's art, I mean, Sean is
so good.
So what's it like being a first-time writer? You're a really accomplished artist, but this is your first writing credit, right? So what was it like putting together the story and the script? And did you have like an editor helping you out, bouncing ideas, doing developmental work? What was that all like?
Yeah, I did have an editor, but so most likely I'm not the type of person who actually would throw my hat into this ring. Like, I know that I'm an artist, and there's a tendency to want to stay in your lane, because even though I want to become a writer, I mean, everyone wants to become a writer, so why me? Like, I don't really have anything that says I can do this. So what I did during the pandemic is I discovered Instagram, and I thought it would be a great platform for putting out comics. So I kind of made up a comic as I went along, and that's a good safe way because you're not charging anyone money. And I'm going to write something and I'm going to draw it, and I'll put up like 5 pages, and then in the comments, people will let me know as soon as it comes up whether they want to read more or not. And there was a lot of people who wanted to see the next bit, so I'll do a little bit more, and then more people started to pile on, and they started to really like it, which no one was more surprised than me, because they were liking the story that I was creating. So eventually I got all the way to 60 pages on that. And when I was finally wrapped it up, everyone was like so like emotionally satisfied that they really liked it. And then it went on to get published in 2 places. So it's no longer on Instagram. It's been published in books and in Heavy Metal magazine. And so that was like a real surprise and a real shot in the arm. It says like maybe I know how to write, because I've been studying writing for a long time. I took the original Robert McKee classes like 25 years ago.
Yes, Story. Good for you.
Yeah.
Very underrated and unknown book in our field. Most people need to read that before they read anything else.
Yeah, I don't know actually anyone who's actually read that book. It's like a phone book.
You do now.
Wow. Okay.
It's enormous. I mean, I studied it in school, right? I went for comparative literature and then for screenwriting. So Story was one of the backbones of my curriculum, and it was massive and it was intimidating, and we certainly didn't read all of it. We had quite very significant chunks, specific elements of story writing, and then we also read a lot of Campbell to back that up, and some of then the modern masters. So yeah, like just I'm really happy that you say that you took the McKee class, because that's a great place to start to learn storycraft.
And so these days I learn a lot of story. Like, I would consume more material about writing stories for comics, but there's just not that much out there. There is a ton of stuff on writing stories for screenplays and for books. Yep. And surprisingly, you can learn a lot. Most of it transfers over to comics really well. So I think the way it kind of messed with my head, though, is that writing for comics is not that serious. I mean, you just kind of make stuff up as you go along, and then it sits on the shelf for a month, and then you're just basically one of many writers who are on this book that goes on for a decade. But this is my first story, so all of my learning was from studying screenplay writing and for novel writing. So this is written a lot like a screenplay, and the thing is, the stakes for screenplays are extremely high. You really have to do a good job, otherwise your movie's not gonna get made anyways. But I mean, you increase your chances by not being the 95% chance that of people that fail. So I applied all that to this comic, which is kind of weird to say because it's just a comic, but it's written with all the seriousness of a screenplay or a novel, as if there's a lot of money and a lot of studios and people writing on it. So it's written on at a very high level, and it's written very tight. It's very compact and condensed. So in those 3 issues that you have, it feels like 6 issues all in there. It doesn't waste any time, and all the scenes do double duty. So, it's basically a screenplay, and it functions like a screenplay because now it's being shopped around the different studios, and they're looking at it like a screenplay that's been illustrated. So
yeah, it functions as a screenplay and a storyboard because you're also giving them the look and feel of it. I'm very well aware of what it is you're doing, Mr. Chen. Yeah. So the idea that like making a comic book feel cinematic, it's nothing really new. What I noticed though is that a lot of comic books can't achieve the same way that a screenplay in the first 20 pages or 30 pages, which would be the first 10 minutes of, runtime, can't always achieve the hooks in the reader. You know what I mean? A lot of comic books don't structure themselves intelligently to be able to go by page 6, there is a wham of, I need to read this. Sometimes it is a beautiful splash page, opening it up, hitting me in the face with some art and a really cool bit of narration. Sometimes it's a very exciting, fast-paced exchange, to open the issue, open with action. Sometimes it's like something very cryptic, like if you look at Watchmen, right? The gutter, right? With the blood in the gutter. It's like imagery that you're hitting me with. And you have the first 5 pages to kind of set that up, but by page 6, on page 6, I need something that's going to get me to turn the page to page 7, right? So I know what you're doing is you're creating arc. You're creating the whole arc on paper, and you're writing your issues to fill the beats within those arcs to fit those acts together so that you develop the story at a reasonably at a good clip. Like your pacing is very important in movies and in comics. So you're focusing very much on advancing the plot to unfold the story so that you can hit your markers. Is this a 6-issue miniseries? Because the first half is the first 3 issues, and then you're releasing the second half. Okay, why do them as floppies, by the way? Why not just do graphic novel part 1, graphic novel part 2?
Well, I was an artist. Now I'm a writer. What I'm not really is I don't handle the business side. So I have business partners that they wanted to do it that way. I think they have their reason. It seems kind of strange to me, but at least you're getting all 3 floppies at once. So if you really want it to be a graphic novel, glue them together.
I want to pick Mr. Carl Choi's brain a little bit here, because usually what I see in crowdfunding is you do the graphic novel, right? You crowdfund the graphic novel and you send that out with extras and bonuses for people who got on board, who helped fund the print run. And then you distribute the floppies to stores monthly. And it's kind of like you double dip it, right? You give the prestige graphic novel the crowdfunding campaign, because with the price point breakdown that you've got on the campaign, each issue comes out to like $11. And I can't imagine that going to the stands that way, because that's not going to be able to compete with the $4.99 price point that you're seeing out of Marvel and other mainstream industry publishers that have good printing deals, especially since I think you're printing overseas, right? It's going to take you 7 months to put in the order for printing and to have it printed and shipped. You probably don't know. It's probably something that 24/7 knows about, but like I'm looking at it because we did a lot of pricing our stuff out when we printed also, and looking at that type of delayed delivery time, that is a overseas, China, Asia, Korea, other continent type of shipping delay. You print and then it's like 6 months on a boat,
3
right?
months.
Well, he's got a 7-month printing delay. So maybe he's printing in New Zealand. I don't know. Is New Zealand closer to us?
Well, I mean, you have to get in the queue. You have to make the plate. Like the entire process, probably. But it depends on how many they're printing.
Okay. You handle this stuff. So you know how you have Mr. Carl Choi. I have Mrs. Frequency Girl here. So I only know what she tells me. We're a very small publisher. We are a small publisher. We've only got 2 books out, but we've got another 12 on the way. So we're putting books out there. We're getting them. through crowdfunding, but also we're looking at distribution and advancing our distribution agenda and how
And we go
would
to a
get that.
lot of Comic Con.
lot
You're
of-
at New York
lot
City
of
Comic
conventions.
Con.
Yeah,
this weekend, aren't
are you there this weekend?
You're in Arts Alley,
Yeah,
right?
well, I ran out of there real fast to get here for this. But yeah.
Oh, we appreciate that. We
that.
would have
Thank
cut you a
you.
break. We
Yeah,
would have gone
yeah.
like an hour later. Didn't know. We were actually supposed to go, but we decided to not with what's going on in the world right now. So
Oh, so
anyway,
you
this
were-
is the
okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
what were you gonna
love
say?
I would love my publisher to meet with you and pick your brain because you guys seem to be really on top of it. We're very new publishers, so we can use. a lot
Well,
of
I don't
advice.
want to brag or anything. We were just at Baltimore at the Ringo Awards because I was technically nominated for a Ringo as part of an anthology. Whatever.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to him. And I know a lot of people that are much well versed in comic book publishing as the self-publishing small cap publishers that would probably love to talk to you guys also because it's a community in a lot of ways. It's a big effort to all try and build each other up and try and put some great stuff out there because indie comics is it's a lifeblood, right? It's how a lot of the new entertainment that we're seeking to get made is coming up from like this grassroots movement, especially in crowdfunding. It's all individual consumers. You're going direct to the consumer, no secondary market, right? You're not going through distribution. You're going direct distribution straight to the customers. So it's clearly these are the people that want the thing. It's not like you're selling a block of books to a comic shop and then basing your success on how many issues the comic book shop orders and then they sell maybe 4 or 5 and dump the rest in the dollar bin. This is literal, like, these people bought my book, these people are the ones that wanted the book and read the book. So the numbers are very encouraging for people that would say option or license or things like that. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was gonna say this is the first book you're crowdfunding. Why crowdfund now in October 2023? Is that just when the project was ready, or was there were you guys pacing this out? Why didn't you launch earlier in say 2021?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm creating the story and the art at my pace, and then I got the notice that we are launching in October. I think it was just time, and we've missed so many previous launch dates, launching in different ways, and we just weren't ready. So we had a bit of a runway this time. Yeah.
So the second half of the interview, and luckily we talked more about like your comic book history and more about the project and everything. The second half of the interview is generally about the crowdfunding campaign itself, why it's structured the way it is, why you figured the funding goal needed to be where it's at, things like that. And if you weren't directly involved in deciding those things, that's fine. There are some things we could probably still ask you, like, what's your favorite tier? What's the tier you think we should be backing?
Well, there is a tier there. I'm a little bit biased because my part of the project was writing a story and then drawing the artwork in the black and white form. Before the colors come on, before the word balloons go over it, they call it the artist edition.
Yeah, the artist edition.
Basically my black and white artwork with all the.
Is it going to be 11 by 17 big old book?
These are comic book size now.
Okay.
So there's 3 issues. It's like probably 60 pages or more of this, and it's basically comic book size without the dialogue balloons and without color on top. And then if you want to read the comic itself, it comes with a PDF, which is the full comic that you can read. And I really like that one just because I like the way my art looks uncolored. I just know that people don't really get into black and white comics as much. So
Yeah.
Silver, I think, is saying in response to the graphic novel model, it sounds like the printer is double dipping on you rather than you on the market. So yeah, there's ups and downs to doing it that way, and I'd be happy to talk to you in DMs. I think I only got Sean for like another 7 minutes. I don't want to waste his time. But yeah, the graphic novel to comic book floppy pipeline, it's something that a lot of us are exploring now. If you want to ask Ray Ramos of 656, or hell, Ollie's in the chat right now. They just did the big Cryptidnals graphic novel, released the graphic novel, everyone read the story, and then they went and dropped the issues. And the issues actually have additional story in them that we didn't get with the graphic novel because we got that first. That's another way of doing it, is like putting backups in the issue, like little
Ollie says,
extra
"Yo."
4-page, 6-page stories and stuff like that give you more information about the characters, like they used to do in Marvel books when they would pad the issues by, there's the main story and then there's like a little backup issue, like a little 4-pager, right? But it provides additional context or additional storytelling that makes that issue that much more fun. So it's another way to do it. And I see how you're saying that printer might be double dipping, but it's just different bindings. One is multiple floppies and one is a perfect bound version. So once they have the print files and you're in the printer queue, you can do a lot of wheeling and dealing with your printer to drop the price of the overall print job if you're doing multiple formats like that, rather than doing like one print run and then another print run. Anyway.
Right.
Sorry about that.
This looks like it would be a really, really good tier for people to pick up. Everyone who's like, oh, I am a big fan of Sean's work. You get to dip into Sean's vault and get a piece of history.
Plunder the vault. Oh, man, there's Elektra in there. I want some of his Elektra pages. I know how much he loves drawing Elektra.
So I've worked for Marvel and DC for 25 years, and I would get the original art back. A lot of it I still had, so it got contributed to the this campaign. So I think at this level you get some original art that it's really one of a kind, and there is I think it's really special because it is one of a kind, and it's all been printed before somewhere, and it's fun to go and find the issue that it's from and see it colored.
Art. Yeah.
So,
exciting. Mo says the artist edition, the black and white line art, right? Would be what's that? That's not lettered. Yeah, the artist edition would be a great companion piece to the unillustrated letterers edition, which is just the lettering file layer, right? Just the layer of lettering that you get before you compress them and send them out as the print file. You just do the lettering layer. That'd be funny too. I would pay maybe $1 to see that digitally, right?
Or it could be the script.
Or no, but it's not the same because it's the layouts, right? You got to pay attention to the layouts. It's just no pictures in the layouts now. All right. So do you personally do any backing and crowdfunding? Have you crowdfunded many projects yourself, like backed them?
I have, yeah. The latest one I did, I was in an art studio with John Paul Leon, who passed away a couple years ago. And then Zoop put out like a sort of like his seminal work was Wintermen. And they put out an entire artist edition of Wintermen, hardcover, oversized, so you can read the story. It was a beautiful piece and a beautiful tribute to him, and all the proceeds went to his family. So, yeah, I backed that. And then every time I have friends that are very creative. They always have a project they put out, and we support each other. So I support their campaign, and they support mine.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's really great. That you're actually. See, that's it right there. You understand the community element of it, supporting other people's projects and helping them fund what it is they're doing and then being supported in return. It's not just like a quid pro quo sort of thing. It's I'm interested in what you're doing. I want to support it, see it succeed, but I also want to see what you're doing. Like you said, I look at a lot of comics. I read comics. I'm also dyslexic, so I do a lot of looking at layouts. I do a lot of, can I read this without words? The words will provide additional context and meaning, but these layouts, can I read the comic book without having to see things? So a great way for me to understand what my contemporaries are doing is get their book. So I'll get the book and I'll flip through it. I'll see what it is they're doing, what it is that's working, what it is that I like. Because in order to do this, right, you need a good diet of lots of stuff. You need a very varied diet. Now, I do not have what you have, which is years upon years, like 20 years of history, drawing comics alongside some of the, greats and the professionals that are all putting out their work, and you guys are going to the bar after work talking about, oh man, I can't believe what happened that I had to draw this week. And I don't have that. What I have is just stacks upon stacks of books sitting here that, I get to look at and pretend I know these people. All right. So, do you have any words of advice, or, like nuggets of wisdom for fledgling creators trying to make it in comics on their own?
Yeah, I do. I'm not sure why the comics are not in the greatest place. I mean, we get our ass kicked by manga a lot. And then just the readership is down. I think there's a lot of other competition for your time, and people just are maybe a little bit adverse to reading. little reluctant to read. I would say that everyone who you have to raise your game in terms of the art and the writing, and particularly the writing. There's the art, and then there's the storytelling through art, and then there's the writing. And I think people like the term writing and story is such a broad term. It encompasses so much. So anyone who's kind of stringing together any type of scene, you can string together cool scenes, and you can kind of consider yourself a writer. But I would just advocate on leveling up from that, because there's stories that are really just basically situations, which is just like something happens and something else happens. Ultimately, they don't really doesn't add up to anything, or it adds up to a lot less of a story than there's potential for. And unfortunately, it's really hard to understand what true, really good writing is. It takes a lot of study, and it's very hard to do, even once you know how it's done. So with this story, I took a year and a half to write it, and it's only 3 issues so far. And it's because of that whole like screenplay-itis. I mean, I'm writing this like it's a screenplay, as if there's millions of dollars I'm in control of. It's just a comic, but you should really write as if your life depended on it. And then that would just raise the level. You should be able to achieve this quality. I guess in books they call it unputdownable, where you start reading it and it just develops a momentum, and you binge the whole thing, even though it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you got to go to work tomorrow. You just have to keep reading it. That's a high bar, like that. And it's very hard to achieve, but it's possible. But you do have to do your homework and study storycraft, and just know a lot about like brain science and what grabs a person about a story.
I like him.
Yep.
You have to understand how readers, especially like in comic books, you have to understand the eye guide, right? You also have to understand how readers psychologically want to read words in a balloon, how many words there should be, and things like that. That's the craft of making it a comic. But they're also going to want, like you said, more than just situations. They're going to want the development of characters. They're going to want the dialogue. Each bit of dialogue that you're consuming has to do something. You mentioned the word double duty earlier when you were saying each scene does double duty. I'm like, I gets it, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just elements to, move the plot forward. They're elements to build anticipation for what's happening later. Each one sets up something that's coming. So you have to pay attention to that kind of stuff, and you have to seed things early, and you really have to go back. So it seems to me like you're not really a character writer, you're a story writer. And story writers generally, they define their characters, and then they create the story that these characters exist inside. And the story is the primary element that they're focusing on. Character writers will tend to like write about a character and then have them experience things and really focus on how those characters interpret the world around them and the things that happen to them and how they mold that person. But like, it's so focused and self-focused inside of that character, they tend to not really pay attention to where they're going, and they tend to write themselves into a corner or off a cliff because they don't have a clear view of the full arc of what it is they're doing. And to master storycraft, you have to know exactly when you're dropping things on your audience. That's the whole element of pacing, right? You have to know exactly when, and you make the big reveal, right? And then you create the twist or the turn. You have to know how much road you need to build up the tension, the narrative tension, the oscillation between hope and fear, the element of stakes, how to build those stakes and then cash in on it. And a lot of that is more than just making things happen for reasons, right?
Yeah, I guess you understand that completely, and you probably agree it's very hard to do, even if you understand it. It's hard to do. It
takes me a long time to write.
Yeah. He's always like, "Why am I so slow? Everyone
slow?
writes so much.
Why is everyone writing faster than me?" That's my biggest thing. Is everyone I know is writing faster than me, and I get so discouraged. But it's nice to meet another fellow writer who is slow as molasses, but is also really focusing on the craft of the story, right, and really taking it seriously.
Right. Yes. You can't really write without in that way without revising. I mean, there's draft after draft after draft.
Right.
Yeah. Anyone who's just writing from point A into point B, they're basically very good at telling a situation, because that's like real life. Anything can happen at any time. But in a story, it only resembles like that. But really, it's highly controlled, and it's highly curated events by a writer who's in control and trying to connect everything to a theme or a controlling idea. and it is hard and it takes time. And unfortunately, this business doesn't really reward taking a lot of time to put out a comic, because the comic,
Right.
Comics are disposable. Yeah, it's a disposable medium. You read it, you fly through it, and you toss it aside, or sometimes you grade it and put it lovingly in a box and keep it for later.
I don't grade it, but I do put it lovingly.
But regardless, you read through it and you consume the thing, and then it's on to next month, right? Like, you know, a lot of the works of entertainment that we have, novels are not that way, or at least they weren't that way. Now, with digital novels, they are. This one will consume a book in a week, and then boom, on to the next one.
It's so funny though, because I was just thinking about that. With comic, especially the comics that I love, like comics that I like, I'll fly through them. But the comics that I love, I will like read them so slowly, and I usually read.
Oh, so she doesn't. She doesn't love Mavericks, guys.
I have read Mavericks like 87,000 times.
To edit it, guys,
and to proofread it, and I'm like, oh my god, how many times did I proofread that thing? Like,
oh god,
a bazillion.
Patience. Thank you for your patience, Eric Weathers. I know you're watching. Was our letterer.
Yeah,
we had several corrections, like, several run-throughs.
I get I mean, I read emails that I send out. I'll read just an email like 7 times before I send it. So like a book that's going to the printer, no, I'm gonna read that 87 times, like letter by letter, with like my index cards, line by line, just to make sure.
And we still sometimes make mistakes.
But we fix them. We find it.
Revolver.
That okay? No. That is not a book. That is not a book. That was on a campaign that we ran, and I had to change the graphic right before we went live, and I hadn't slept in like 48 hours. So
there's a tier.
I did make a mistake, but
there was
a
tier on the last crowdfunding campaign that we ran for a replica cosplay revolver that the main character uses. Is it here on the table somewhere? I don't know where it is.
No, I think you brought it upstairs.
This is his mask. This is the character's mask, and so we did like cosplay, you know, replicas that you can like. This will have a back.
So different from the mech book.
Yeah, different book. This is Judex. But we did that, and like the tier for the revolver, we had to assemble the assets and everything the day of, and she put an O instead of an E because the font is specialized, and she didn't quite catch it. And then someone pointed out that it said revolver, and we will not live that down ever.
No.
It is the
especially
one.
because once someone backed it, because once you can't change it.
You can't change it.
Oh, okay, the tiers,
Right. Yeah, so like, whoops.
Yeah.
Well.
But yeah, so I will always point out revolver.
Yes.
And it's not your fault. So, is there anything else you want to tell people? Get the last word before we get on out of here.
It's hard to do with Neff. He likes to talk a lot.
I love talking.
Well, I would like to say that these 3 issues that make up this Kickstarter, it's been a passion project. I put a lot of energy into it. It's very carefully written, and a lot of people say it's very smartly written. So you get a lot out of it. It's not like your typical comic book, because it contains like maybe 3 or 4 like big creative and imaginative ideas, and the story seems to just move forward and kind of unfold in a way that you kind of have to just read it all the way through once you start. And you know, that's what we've been hearing. So I make these preview copies. You can tell like when you read it, it's not finished, work in progress. And based on the feedback, we go in and actually open it up again and add more pages where it's needed. You can see like there's like in the middle of all the color pages, there'll be like pages still in black and white and lettered by hand. There's just kind of placeholders, because we're constantly evolving this thing based on people's feedback and their understanding of the story. And so that's how much care we put into it. And I think it's very different. Like if there's a thing in when you read a lot of comics or watch a lot of movies, there's a certain feel of a lot of sameness, because you got to make a lot of safe plays that are basically those decisions are made by data and marketing, and there's almost like creatively kind of bankrupt. So if you want something fresh and new and out of left field, and it takes a big swing but still works, this is something that I think will surprise you. So I definitely recommend it, and you can read it. If you like it, you can let me know. If you don't, you can throw tomatoes at me. So
Okay, yeah, guys, I would recommend this one. We're backing it. We endorse it.
Yep, I already
Sean,
did back it, but you're probably gonna have me adjust it because I have a feeling you're gonna want
I want
one
the
of.
$600 chair.
That's what I had a feeling once you saw that. I'm like, oh, you're gonna be adjusting.
I'm gonna steal his electric piece.
Thank you
But
very
yeah,
much for that.
of course. I mean, like once again, it's all about supporting each other and getting the exciting stuff while you can, right? This isn't something that I would be able to get at the store. It's a crowdfunding campaign, and you're doing stuff that's special for your backers. So we want to take the special stuff. Like, who wouldn't?
And one thing I want to say is that on the print tier, which is, I don't know where it went because now I can't find it, but the one with all of the books, there's 0 shipping on that, so you guys get 3 books.
Yeah, $35, I think, for 80 pages. It breaks down to about $11 an issue, but that's with shipping included.
Yep.
So these guys are doing what we're doing. I got to give it up for
that's great.
That's really good. Okay.
Silver says Revolver is not as bad as Revolver would have been. That's
Yeah,
true.
that
It
would've
could have
been
been worse. Thank
would
you.
have been terrible.
Thank
That's
you,
funny.
Silver.
All right, so that's been it for us tonight, guys. Thank you so much, Sean, for coming on, talking about Evermind. Really, guys, I encourage you to support this book. Back Sean.
What happened? Okay.
No, we still got him. That's going to be it for us tonight, guys. Thank you so much for coming on. Thanks, Sean, for coming on talking about Evermind. Guys, back this book. We really encourage you to pick it up. It's a good value. Sean's a great guy. We want to support his first comic, support 24/7 Comics. If you like the content, please leave us a thumbs up and subscribe. We're on our way to 1,000. You guys need to get those membership cards. And you can always click the bell for notifications to know when we go live next.
And tune into the frequency.
See you next time.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.